global connotations and local connotations, but just from the perspective as an American,
Yes.
Are we making the right moves in Syria?
It's a you're asking a very good question there too. Syria is a multi-ethnic society. Without going into any number, it's like 15% Alawite, which is a Shia-like religion. They have been in power since 1970 for the last 40 years. There's like 65% are Sunni, and the rest are Christians and Jews. The majority, just like the majority in Iraq is Shia, the majority in Syria is Sunni. Any opening of the Syrian system, either through armed rebellion or some kind of democratization, would bring the Sunni majority to power, just like the democratization in Iraq brought the Shia to power, and the Sunni element in Iraq were relegated to a minority. Now, what you're asking is a very good question, because many in Israel and in the United States were hesitant to support the rebels because some of them are Islamic fundamentalists. There's no denial of it. And on the margin, the very margin, we begin to see the involvement of some Al-Qaeda elements. But on the very margin, Syria is a very secular society, just like Egypt. But in any society, you will find fanatics. So one of the reasons why Israel and the United States were hesitant to support the rebels, at least publicly, was the fear that we're going to have some kind of a fundamentalist Sunni regime to replace a secular Shia-leaning regime.
Right.
Saudi Arabia has committed itself in secret talks with the United States to make absolutely sure that the Sunnis in Syria that Saudi Arabia support, would not be jihadists, and that it would be a moderate Sunni regime, just like we have in Morocco or Turkey or Indonesia. But what you are asking is a very good question. But there is a question you didn't ask, which straddles these two questions. Many people fear that what would happen in Syria is not a continuation of a Shia minority rule, the Assad family, and not the birth of a majority Sunni rule in the rebels, but rather the fracturing, the disintegration of Syria into 4 or 5 separate ethnically based communities. This is the great fear.
Right, and listen, Ben, in America, Americans have become tired of the Middle East. Mm-hmm. We've been in Iraq for what seems like a lifetime.
Yep.
We're in Afghanistan. Apparently, we're going to be there forever. We've got all these issues that relate to our, friendship and relationship with Israel, and how do we keep this bubble of protection there? How do we keep Israel from, having to go into battle with some of these folks, like Iran, for example?
Yep.
And now you see all this conflict, which could very quickly, like a brush fire, leak right up to the Golan Heights. Yep. So I mean, I'm saying Americans are so tired, and they're so, I think pretty much left in the dark by the media. I don't have any other way to say it. The media is just, in my view, completely remiss. I think because they think Americans are not interested. It's not going to bring in ad revenue and sell smartphones, and so they're pretty much, just kind of brushing across the top of these very important subjects, which lead back to the security of the people of this country. If we continue to muddle these foreign policies in the Middle East, if we don't eventually get it right, not only is it going to be financially a nightmare for us, but it just really compounds our homeland security endeavors. We have, there's so much more complicated stuff involved if we can't get some kind of settlement over there, and it's just an ongoing, never-ending gobstopper of, oh my God, we need this stuff resolved. Of course, I say it's been thousands of years, it's never been resolved.
Yeah.
We can go from the Torah clear up to the New Testament, but
you're right. But the argument is, what you say is right. But the argument is, and history provides some support for that argument. Look at Europe. The European countries, until 1945, were at war at some point of Europe or another, and at time the entirety of Europe for 200 years. It began as a religious war between Catholics and Protestants, and then Napoleon and the German unification. But when did wars in Europe stop? When all the European countries, at the beginning Western European countries, but then became democracies. Because democracies don't go to war against each other.
Right.
So the argument that Bush made in 2006, and as I said, is being continued by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, is that if we find a way to democratize the Middle East, either by invading Iraq and toppling Saddam Hussein, this is what Bush did, or by encouraging elections like we did in Tunisia, in Morocco, in Yemen, in Egypt, if we bring democracy to the Middle East, it may be an ugly democracy at the beginning, it may not be a democracy like in Fairfax County, Virginia, but some kind of the people having a say, having control, holding rulers accountable, we will end up in 10, 20 years like where Europe is now. Again, Germany and France were at constant war for 150 years.
Right.
Look at them now. They have this. So, but the question is whether or not what we have in Arab societies, do we have the foundation for a democracy to emerge? This is the key question. Not that people deny that this is a desirable end result. But both the Bush administration and the Clinton administration, on this they are united, believe that there are enough elements that support democratization in the Arab world.
Yes, but
again, it won't be a democracy like you have in Oregon.
But Ben, the America that you and I grew up in is quite different than the America depicted today in Homeland Security Newswire, where the kids are dumber than a box of rocks growing up in this country. Okay, do the American people have the educational foundation to carry this democracy forward as an example to the rest of the world? And I think that is questionable at this point. And we're seeing a lot of really strange stuff coming out of Washington nowadays, and the people are completely silent. And so I do think that at some point we're going to have to resolve, again, I'm talking about Homeland Security here, we're going to have to resolve these education issues. The United States of America should not be way down in the middle of the pack of industrialized nations. We should be on top. And that's our fault. It's our fault. We can't blame the Middle East for that. We can't blame Europe for that. We can't blame South and Central America. We can't blame illegal immigration. It's our fault.
Completely.
Ben, it's an awesome time having you on the air and talking with you, and we're going to do a lot of it in the future.
We should.
And I've enjoyed it.